Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jacqueline Gibson, and I am a professional astrologer using the whole sign house system. Today we're looking at the upcoming eclipse in Virgo, occurring on March 14th, 2025. This lunar eclipse coincides with Venus's retrograde in Aries and Neptune hitting the 29th degree of Pisces. Just 3 days later, Mercury will move into retrograde motion, also in Aries, so that happens on March 17th. So these co-occurring planetary events highlight introspection and review in areas of your life that correspond to Pisces and Aries in your natal chart. During this eclipse period, you may find yourself reflecting on events from September of 2024, when the first eclipse in this cycle occurred, and also significant moments happening as far back as like March 2023. That's when Saturn first ingressed into Pisces, as well as way back in August of 2011 when Neptune first entered Pisces. So as those two major planets transited through Pisces, they were pointing out instances where we might ask ourselves, where are boundaries really forming in my life? Where am I being shown that boundary needs to be here? And then moving forward and creating that boundary. These two very significant planets going through a sign together indicates that there's been a lot of change in that area of your life. So you want to be asking yourself, what has changed? What has been kind of stagnant? Maybe there was something that was moving forward quickly that suddenly stopped and shifted direction. These are the events of your life that will be highlighted during this eclipse period. So you just want to take time to reflect, really do inventory of what those significant events have been, what they brought to you, what they mean to you. So what recurring themes have happened in your life? What has changed? What has stayed the same? What has stalled? And what has completely transformed? During this eclipse period, you're likely to want to wrap up loose ends and clarify what steps you want to take moving forward. So it's like I'm closing the door on this thing, I'm wrapping that up, and then moving forward, what are the practical steps that I want to take? You might be considering how your dreams have evolved and how your boundaries have shifted over this time. As Neptune and Saturn get ready to move into Aries in April and May, we're preparing for a more action-oriented existence. So we want to be sure that we're taking the right actions for ourselves and not reacting based on what other people are saying or what other people might be doing. So we're using this time to prepare to take the best possible actions for us. So you might want to ask yourself at this time, what does preparation look like for you? What action are you prepared to take based on how you've grown over these last years and what has changed for you? The Pisces-Virgo axis is about the dream or the vision in Pisces, and then it's about the practical steps that we take to make that dream into a goal and move towards it in Virgo. So I might dream about singing professionally in Pisces, where all that matters is the dream that I'm having. But in Virgo, I remember that I can't carry a tune. And the reality of singing in front of people who are expecting to hear something at least appealing would be a nightmare for me. So Virgo's like the reality check after we've had the dream. We go to take those first steps. And if they look like, oh, heck no, I'm not doing that. That's not me. That's not what I want. Then that's Virgo making sure that we don't waste our time on a dream that's not right for us. But on the other hand, for someone who has musical talent, the dream could be to sing professionally, and the practical steps could be taking a class, getting a singing coach, getting out into the world to perform, and those things would sound like real possibilities. And so for that person, Virgo is showing them step by step how to get to that dream, how to make that dream a goal and actually realize it. So Virgo helps us to not waste time on the dreams that aren't really ours, and to show us how we actually get to the dreams that are right for us. So right now we're likely asking ourselves, what visions for our lives are starting to form in the real world? And what do we consciously want to add to the plan that's forming? We may also be asking, is there a plan forming? Is that plan right for me? What detours might be necessary? What's the goal we're trying to get to? So this is how Virgo participates in making our dreams into goals. So now let's take a look at how this eclipse in Virgo will be affecting you individually based on your rising sign. If you have Virgo rising, this eclipse on March 14th will be happening in your 1st and 7th house and may be causing significant shifts having to do with your personal identity and your relationships. You might experience a shift in how you present yourself to the world, and you might reevaluate like your core beliefs as they pertain to how you present yourself. So what is the image that you present to others? And how is that changing? Do you like those changes? Are you on board with the changes? Do you feel like you're changing in a way that presents you to others in a way that's not true for you? And if so, what do you feel is necessary to do about that? Regarding your relationships, there's likely going to be focus in that area of your life right now. So there may be old issues that sort of resurface that need to be either readdressed or just discussed again. For example, if there was an issue that came up in your relationship, there was a plan put in place to solve whatever the issue was, and that isn't working, you might find that it comes back up to be reevaluated so that you can solve it differently, so that you can put some tweaks to whatever solution that you had before. It doesn't necessarily mean that whatever you did was wrong. It's just coming back up like, hey, add to this. So try not to be defensive if that's what happens for you. Usually the worst thing that we can do in a relationship is if something comes back up, immediately go back to like, this again, and why do I have to deal with this again? If we face it head on, it's likely to be resolved faster. We don't have to keep facing it. But that attitude of resistance immediately when any kind of issue resurfaces, that can sabotage the solution before we even get started, if that makes sense. For Virgo rising during this time, there's definitely potential for new relationships if you're not currently in a serious long-term relationship. And there's also potential for old relationships returning. That's not always a good thing, and it's not always a bad thing. Sometimes it's something like a relationship comes back and we need to like readdress some things in order to move on. Sometimes a relationship comes back and it reminds us, oh yeah, I know why I left that relationship and it wasn't right for me and that's why it ended. And sometimes a relationship comes back and it is the right thing. Like sometimes we'll have a relationship, but it's not a good time for that particular relationship, and it comes back later and it is a good time. And the people involved, you for instance, might be ready for that relationship today. So what that looks like for you really depends on you, but you've likely been shown over the last few months in what ways you've grown. So you'll know based on what you have learned anyway. You'll notice, oh, if I had known this before, that relationship might have worked. I wish I had known this before. And then that relationship reappears. Or you'll walk through something and go, oh yeah, that's why that relationship was never right for me. That never would have worked. This thing that's happening in my life never would have worked if I was with this person. It doesn't mean anything bad about you or that person, just we don't fit, we don't work because of this reason. And sometimes all of this coming back is just to help us practice acceptance so that we can be at peace as we move forward. If I decided I was a bad partner because of the way a relationship ended, I might now get to see that, no, I wasn't a bad partner. It just wasn't the right relationship for me. Now I can move on without judging myself so harshly. If you have Leo rising, this eclipse will be happening in your 2nd and 8th houses. So the second house is all about personal finance, your personal wealth, your belongings, your stuff. So there may be some stuff that you're letting go of, likely to make room for other things. But your focus right now is on your money and what has value for you. You may find yourself wanting to invest, and that can mean investing in your future in a multitude of different ways. It doesn't always mean, buying crypto or engaging in the stock market. But if those things are relevant to you, then that's what it could be. Investment just doesn't always mean Wall Street. If you're waiting on news regarding travel or higher education, that may be delayed right now, and that could be causing some frustration, but delay doesn't mean necessarily that it's ending. It is a time for you to reevaluate, are these plans right for me? Are there tweaks that I need to make? Is there something that I need to wrap up, let go of before I move forward with those plans that are coming to fruition this summer or this fall? So basically, as the eclipse happens, if something is kind of blowing up in your face, try not to get too discouraged. In the end, it's for the best, but it can also be just about tweak the plan a little bit. It doesn't necessarily mean all is lost, if that makes sense. Basically, just avoid knee-jerk reactions during this time. Anything going through your 8th house can sometimes be putting a spotlight on what fear is getting in the way of moving forward. So if you have fears related to your personal finances, address them head on. Some fears are rational. Some fears are there because that's not a good idea. I fear putting my hand in a bear's mouth because that's a bad idea and I will lose my hand. So some fears are a good thing, and we want to notice them and react appropriately. But sometimes fear is like a recurring trauma response that is getting in my way, and that's something that I need to deal with and work through so that I can make better decisions moving forward. So do I spend impulsively? Is that something that I want to look at? Do I invest impulsively? Is that something that I want to look at? What about my personal finances, my stuff, is getting in my way? And where could I let go so that I can be free of any unhealthy attachments in that area? I hope that makes sense. If you have Cancer rising, the lunar eclipse on March 14th will be about communication and learning for you. You might face opportunities for networking, or a plan for networking that you may have had might be canceled. Try to remember that that's the right thing for you. Like there might be something coming up in the near future that was better suited for you, that matches you better. And that's where you want to put your energy. During an eclipse, the things that fall by the wayside or that don't work out, we definitely want to practice accepting that, because there's not much during an eclipse period that you're going to be able to do to stop those changes from happening, those shifts from occurring. You can't stop an eclipse from happening. So the best thing to do is like see it for what it is and like move forward purposefully, like this is my new plan. There might also be conflicts like with siblings or people that you consider like your brother, your sister, your person in a sibling kind of way. If those conflicts come up, again, it's the same thing. You just want to be sure to face it and to be present with facing it. Try to remember miscommunication, conflict, it doesn't have to escalate to be meaningful. Like sometimes solution comes in parts. An eclipse cycle is 5 weeks. So we don't have to solve everything on the day of the eclipse or the day after the eclipse. That's usually a messier time. Like there's more emotion kind of flowing during that time. So better to like observe, think about things, and then come back with a solution than to try to do everything like right now, if that makes sense. There may also be some like conflicting focus having to do with like travel, higher education, and then your career and your public persona. So that could look like, in order for my career to move forward, I need to get more higher education or another certification in, whatever the additional area is. And there may be some conflict there. Like the timing's not working out. There's a trip that I had planned to take. The resources aren't there, whatever the case may be. But again, try to remember that that's happening for a reason. There may be a better solution. So try to just hang in there until that solution presents itself or until you're able to find it. It doesn't mean sit around and wait for the universe to say, here's your solution. Sometimes we have to go and look for it, but it could be there. We get too frustrated, we miss things. So whatever feelings you're having, they're always valid and they're always okay. But then we want to come back to it when we're feeling better and try and work through it the best we can. Find the right solution that the universe is trying to guide you to. Or trying to point out to you, like, wouldn't this be better? For Cancer Rising, this could also look like a trip that you were planning to take doesn't work out. And that may be because a different trip would be better, a different route would be better. So again, just try to be open to whatever changes are coming. It's a lot easier to go with the flow at this time than it is to dig in our heels and insist that things go a certain way. And try to think about, if I am digging in my heels and getting stubborn about it, why am I doing that? Is it really because of the destination or something about the destination? Or is this about just plain old stubbornness? And if so, why? If you have Gemini rising, the eclipse on March 14th will happen in your 4th and 10th houses and could be pointing to emotional shifts having to do with your home or your family or both. This could be a really important time for reflecting on family dynamics and emotional themes in your life, especially those foundations and what's being altered in your family dynamics at this time. This could also be a good time for your career regarding advancement or just changes in your career that are a positive change for you. But that could actually be causing some of the struggle in your home. So some of the challenge right now for you may have to do with how you balance those things. Where is your time being spent? Where do you want your time to be spent? Are there outside pressures that are causing you to change your focus in a way that's not realistic or true for you? That's not really where I want my energy, but that's where my energy keeps ending up. That's where all of my time is. That's where all of my focus is. And again, that could be on either. It could be that your focus is more on your home than in your career, and you would like for your home to be less distracting or less draining or less demanding of your time in some way. Just even if it's just for this period of your life. Maybe that's not your focus all the time, but it needs to be your focus right now. And that is what's best for you. So the really important thing here is to just keep reminding yourself, what are your goals for your life and what do you want to make the most important aspect of your life? Is that your home or is that your profession? Do you want balance in those things? Or do you want to be spending more time at home and the career is not as important to you? And if that's the case, maybe a different job would be better for you that doesn't ask as much of you. Or maybe there's some conversations that you need to be having with the people in your home to let them know that right now you need this time for yourself so that you can advance in your career. If you have Taurus rising, the eclipse on March 14th will be in your 5th and 11th houses. So this indicates focus on your creativity, romantic relationships, your children, if you have children, and basically just what's fun for you. romantic relationships or romance in general in the fifth house isn't so much about marriage and commitment as it is about the fun of being in a relationship and what, romance looks like to us. It's different for everyone. So that would be whatever romance looks like for you. But this is a good time for a romance to start. Doesn't mean that it can't progress into something later that is a commitment, but at this time, it's much more about the dating, the fun, the gifts, the gestures, the sex, if that applies. It may be for the last months or even years that friend groups have felt like a job for you. So if you're lucky, that's because your friends are the people you work with. But it can look like my friends are work. So if it's felt like your friends have taken you away from what brings you joy, whether that's romance and dating, expressing yourself creatively, like maybe you're married and you haven't gotten to do any kind of like date time with your person, with your partner, or even if you're in a committed long-term relationship, it's the same to the universe. It's the same thing. Have you been going on enough dates, and has your friend group or demands from your like community that you're involved with, has that taken center stage, and has that taken something out of the romance or the fun in your life? So again, that can be like dating and having fun with someone new, with your person, with your partner, or that could be about like things that you do creatively that you enjoy doing that you realize you haven't done for a really long time and that you want to re-engage with. And maybe there's some kind of expectation from friends, from friend groups, from social groups, or from your communities that you're engaged with that are pulling you away from those things. And you might see at this time that like it may suddenly become like, that's significant for me right now. I need to change that. So if that's what you're seeing, it is a good time to do that, to make whatever changes so that you're enjoying your life more. And it may be that at one point you made a shift in that direction. Like, I'm not spending enough time engaged with my community or involved in community activities, something to do with, the group. And you wanted to invest more in that, more of your time in that direction. But it just may have gotten to where that has become a burden in some way. And there needs to be some kind of balance there. Like you're losing the fun in your life and you need to put more energy into what kind of lightens your heart, just makes you enjoy life. So whatever that is for you, that's what's coming up right now. Not a bad thing to have come up. It may also be that you're losing some type of creative activity that was focused more on you so that you can engage more with the community. And if that's your choice, if that's what's good for you, that's what you want. It's not like the universe is saying, no, you'll regret it later. If you feel in your gut, like that's what I want to do. I've been spending all my time on this thing. I need a break from this. And I want to go and do this other thing with my friends. Then do that. It's really about doing that check-in and saying, what's best for me right now? If you have Aries rising, the lunar eclipse on March 14th will be affecting your 6th and 12th houses. This indicates some focus on your daily routine, your physical health, and possibly like your job and the people that you work with at your job. You might suddenly change like your daily habits to focus more of your time and energy on what is best for you, like taking time out to make sure you make your lunch instead of going out for lunch, taking time to make sure that you get enough rest at night, like changing the time that you go to sleep at night so that you wake up feeling less like a zombie by Friday or by the end of your week, whenever that is. This can also have to do with people that you employ. And I always want to make sure that people understand that doesn't mean that everyone who has Aries rising owns a business and has employees that they're dealing with. That's not everyone. But a lot of times we have employees that we're not considering our employees, like babysitters, people who help out with housework, people who even, like, if you're running an ad somewhere for a business, that would be somebody working for you for a specific project, right? Somebody who's helping you design a website, someone who's helping with your social media to align them with your own personal business. Even if, like, you're self-employed and it's just you might have other people who do projects for you. So this eclipse could indicate them in some way. You might be letting go of somebody who babysat for you. They might suddenly, move on, get a different job. You have to find somebody new, but there may be some kind of gap in that, like, helping network that you have, whatever that looks like for you. And so you're looking for someone else to fill a void, or you might notice that you need someone to help with a certain project or to fill in some place in your life so that your daily routine is not so overwhelmed. So if that's you, you might be noticing where that space is that you need to fill. This time could also be bringing attention to, like, your spiritual growth or any unresolved issues or hidden fears. So what that looks like is when we have, like, reactive behaviors that we're not really sure where they come from. We know we have the reactive behavior, but we just sort of accept it on the surface and we're not looking at, like, the root of it. Like, some years ago, I noticed that I have extreme panic and fear in airports, which didn't make any sense to me because as a kid, I loved flying. Every summer it was, going to see my grandparents. I loved it. So why was I always, having this intense fear in airports? And started to realize, that fear came from a lot of the changes that were made after 9/11, as well as, like, this just nagging thing in my head that said I wasn't good enough to be there, which is weird, but it got in there at some point in my life. And because I started to notice it, because I made it conscious, I was able to work through it. Like, everybody, there's a million different kinds of people at the airport and no one is paying attention to me. Everyone's trying to get to their plane. So what difference does it make whether I deserve to be here or not? So that's what I mean by unconscious fear. Like, I have this behavior, maybe every time I go to the airport, I'm a basket case and I'm not stopping to look at why that is. And this would be a good time to look at why that is so that we can consciously work through it and end it. Like, I don't have to be a basket case every time I go to the airport. I don't have to worry about being late because I'm going to become a basket case on my way out the door and, trip over myself. Remember, too, that the 12th house is about sabotage from others and self-sabotage. So by not working through those fears, we can self-sabotage because we're remaining unconscious about these things, and then we end up tripping over them, not realizing, like, where they're coming from. So this is a good time to work through those things as they come up so that you can move forward with more freedom from them. Like, it isn't coming up to punish you, like, what a stupid fear to have. It's a lot of times that's the reactive place that we go to. I can't look at it because it makes me weak, or it makes me not as intelligent, or, it means that I'm broken in some way. That's not why this time is happening. This time is happening so that you can have more freedom moving forward. So if the fear comes up, try to remind yourself of that. If you have Pisces rising, this lunar eclipse on March 14th is happening in your 1st and 7th houses. It's likely at this time that partnerships are brought into focus and that deeper conversations are happening around your partnerships or with your partner. There can be shifts involving your relationships and the dynamics of your relationships, or even who you partner with. So you may have recently ended a partnership and you're starting a new one, or there may be a return to an old relationship. We often think of this as a bad thing, but the truth is that it isn't always, as long as we remain conscious. So for instance, if a relationship ended, why did it end? And were the things that caused that relationship to end, have they resolved themselves with time, or working together have we been able to resolve that? And am I able to be honest with myself about that? If this is resolved, then I can move forward returning to this partnership. If this is not resolved, I can't just pretend that it's resolved and move forward anyway. And I have to be clear about that moving forward. Because of all the activity that's happening in your first house, this very long Neptune transit, Saturn for the last 2.5 years, 2 years, and now this eclipse cycle that's begun in your first house, your personal identity, the way you see yourself and the way that you express yourself, these things are changing dramatically. And so in any relationships that you are either starting or going back to or moving on from, all of those things really have to align with how you see yourself. So if by returning to a partnership, you feel like you have slighted yourself in some way, that may seem like an obvious thing, but a lot of times we have to really stop to think about that. If that's what's presenting itself to you at this time, then that's an indication that this may not be the right time to return to a relationship or to start a relationship. If you feel like it blocks your own personal growth, that's not something that's healthy for you right now, because that's where there's a lot of focus for you right now. And if you try to squash that, it's likely to result in unhappiness for you, either now or soon or later down the road. But it absolutely is coming, especially through this eclipse cycle. Like that could cause a lot of turmoil if you're saying, no, I don't really want personal growth. I think I'll just put all my energy in a relationship so that I can escape that. You're not going to be satisfied with that. It's very unlikely you'll be satisfied. If you allow the personal growth to happen, then you're likely to get into a partnership that is a much more accurate reflection of you. It may also be that if you were in a partnership, that you found that that partnership doesn't work for you anymore and it's ending at this time. Anytime we have breakups, they can be hard. But if you ask yourself, honestly, like, was this relationship serving my personal growth or was it getting in the way of my personal growth? If the answer to that is it was blocking me, it was getting in my way, then just know that even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's outright painful, it is the right thing for you to move on, because right now that's just where your focus needs to be in order for you to make the right plans for your life and the right decisions for your life moving forward. If you have Aquarius Rising, this lunar eclipse on March 14th is occurring in your 8th and 2nd houses. And so you're likely looking at your shared resources, your attitude towards intimacy and how intimacy is affecting your life right now or affecting your relationships right now. There may be transformations in your relationships. So relationships may be ending at this time. Or there could be endings within the relationship. So dynamics within the relationship that maybe you've addressed with your partner are changing and shifting, and things are like falling away as they've been worked through. But there is like a dynamic of something coming to the surface and then being released. So there are many endings like that in a long-term relationship. So it doesn't necessarily mean that your relationship itself is ending. But a lot of the dynamics that come up right now as not working, if those aren't resolved, then the relationship could end. If you're not in a relationship at this time, you're likely looking at what your own emotional needs are and what you need to further your own emotional growth. So if that looks like, taking some time to do any kind of healing work or therapy or, coaching, whatever that looks like for you, there may just be some emotional issues that are they're coming to the surface right now, whether they're things you've addressed in the past or it's something new. But what you're being shown right now is that it's a good time to address whatever that is. This eclipse could also be about how you share resources or what shared resources look like in your life, whether that's investments, insurance, or the way that you share resources with your partner. Whatever this looks like for you and whatever's coming up for you, it's, just about addressing it openly and honestly, dealing with whatever conflicts arise and moving past it. So the 8th house is not one that we tend to address easily. It's like touchy for people. It usually hits on some kind of vulnerability. So a lot of times it's not about what's happening on the surface. It's about something underneath. So it's a really good time to just move forward slowly and to be mindful of like reacting in the moment. Because a lot of times those are reactions that we're like, I wish I had said that differently, or I wish I had done that differently. So in order to not have that like kind of regret or, repairs that we need to make, it's a good time to move slowly, knowing that, okay, a lot of the things that come up might be touchy for me because of something else that I've been through. I want to be able to assess that for myself before I respond. And as long as you're making sure that you're doing that, this shouldn't be too troublesome for you. It also doesn't mean because you're feeling sensitive about something, that doesn't mean it's not valid. And that is also just as important to remember. Sometimes what I'm noticing is that someone is constantly hitting a vulnerability despite the fact that I've said, hey, that's not something I'm comfortable with. And yet this keeps coming up. So that could be an example of someone's not paying attention to what you are sharing with them. If you're being open and honest with someone who you're in a partnership where there should be trust, and it feels like they're not respecting that, then that's something that also needs to be addressed mindfully. Like there may be some endings that need to happen there. Just make sure that you're doing what's right for you. If you have Capricorn Rising, the lunar eclipse on March 14th is happening in your 9th and 3rd houses. So this eclipse is asking you to look at your worldview, your perspective, and how can you broaden that? Perhaps how can you be more inclusive? Or where are you being inclusive that maybe moving forward you don't want to be? In a nutshell, it's just asking you to reevaluate. And this is a good time for reevaluation of who you align yourself with philosophically. That can also extend to our political beliefs, spiritual beliefs, churches that we attend, schools that we go to, any kind of higher education. And again, it can be working either way. It could be about, and it's not so much exclusion as it is like outgrowing a certain belief and wanting to embrace something different and grow in that way. So even though it sounds kind of like limiting, it's really not. It's about clearing space. So where in your life might you need to clear some space so that you can broaden your horizons? And where do you feel your worldview changing that you may be feeling held back from in some way? So like there's a natural progression happening, but something is kind of holding you back from that or limiting your ability to explore that. That's what needs to kind of be set aside so that the expansion piece can actually happen, so that the growth piece can actually happen. This can sometimes look like travel as well. It's anything that like expands our horizon. So if that means travel for you, it could look like changing travel plans, making unexpected travel plans, or travel plans that like this got canceled, so I'm doing this instead. But just in general, it's shifting what my future travel plans might look like. There may also be like siblings that are participating in that block in some way. And so that's a sensitive area to make changes in, right? Like maybe I have different, political views or spiritual views or, perspective of the world than my sibling. I may not want to cut them out completely, but I may want to start limiting my time or limiting the time I spend in conversation about those things. Like maybe we've rehashed this to death and there's nothing left to talk about. Or maybe we've avoided the conversation altogether and we need to have a conversation. Whatever it looks like for you, that's what needs to happen next, if that makes sense. If you have Sagittarius rising, the eclipse happening on March 14th will be in your 10th and 4th houses. So this means for you that the focus is on your career as well as your public life and who you present yourself as when you're in public versus your private life, your home, your family, your foundation, your emotional life. So you may feel like recognized in some way in your career or in public, or there may be focus on like authority figures in your life, either giving you a hand up or recognizing you in some way. And this might be causing you to let go of something in your home, or maybe even causing some like personal discomfort, like emotional discomfort. The discomfort is just, it's like a signal of something that needs to be let go. So possibly you're spending more time than you're comfortable with at home, or you feeling just attached to home in a way that is preventing you from really, getting out there, getting out into the world, or just even growing up or growing in some new direction. It may just be that you've gotten comfortable in a certain like emotional status quo that's blocking you from taking any risk out in the real world or out in your career. Like, I'm comfortable at home. I don't really need to put myself out there. Or I'm comfortable in this little spot. I'm just feeling kind of risk averse right now. So that doesn't mean, leap without looking, but you do want to look at, are you missing anything? Are you choosing the comfort of what you know over something new and exciting that could be better? Are you giving everything a chance? And is there, are there places in your life where you might be able to, take some healthy risks and, do something new, try something new? If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. It's a good thing to have a comfort zone that you can go back to. You just don't want to never leave your comfort zone. If your sense of security has become dependent upon a certain status quo, it's likely that status quo will get disrupted to urge you to try something new. We all want to stay in what's comfortable. It's just not the way life works. For me at least, as soon as you get comfortable, that's when everything changes. It's not like that for everyone, but for whatever reason, it's like that for you right now. So the comfort that you've known is shifting so that you can try something new. And it's kind of inviting you to like have an attitude of being open to what's new. We never have to be like delusional that everything new is good. We want to still keep our feet on the ground and be real about what is happening. If this sucks, then this sucks. And that's okay. We can accept that, but we can also look at, but if it's something that I have no choice, I have to do right now, like maybe I have to move. Maybe I have to move and that causes a career shift. Whatever the details look like for you, there's some kind of shift in your emotional foundation that's urging you to embrace something new. So try it out. See, it might not be the first thing is the best thing for you, but it's about getting yourself out there and trying something new so that the process of trying new things becomes more habitual. If you have Scorpio rising, this lunar eclipse on March 14th is happening in your 5th and 11th houses. So this can cause you to kind of reassess what friendship looks like for you or what your current friend groups look like and how you're experiencing them. You might feel like emotionally compelled to get more involved in your community or in some kind of community group. There's some type of like social interaction that's motivating you right now, whether you want to be more socially active or you want to let go of certain social activities. but there's some kind of focus on social events and activities right now for you. There's also a lot of focus in your fifth house where creativity lies, where what brings you joy is. This can also be your children and romantic partnership, romantic relationships. Again, fifth house romance is not necessarily about marriage, but if you're in a long-term, committed partnership, it can look like reinvesting your time in the romance in your relationship. Maybe your relationship has looked a lot like work lately. There's been a lot of working at it. Maybe there's been projects that, you've been involved in with your partner that have just kind of taken some of the fun out of the relationship or taken the romance out of the relationship. And this might be like highlighting like, hey, that, we really need to do something about that. We need to have more fun together. There needs to be more romance. Maybe you're feeling more romantic towards your partner than you have in a while. And you're noticing like, wow, this isn't usually how we interact. What has happened? Wanting to do something about that. This is a good time for like short-term affairs. It doesn't mean they have to be short-term, but like a romantic relationship that starts right now is likely to start off like very fun and romantic and not serious necessarily. More about the fun of dating and less about like the commitment of relationships, long-term committed marriage, that type of thing. It's much more about the dating and the fun and the sex and the dreaming about being in a relationship, and a lot less like the marriage and the work. There is likely just some type of ending right now, and it can be like an ending towards an attitude. Like if there's been a worry on your mind or just a focus that has been somewhat draining. Either you're finding solutions to those things that have been a distraction for a very long time, or you're finding a way to like compartmentalize. So I don't have to allow this thing that's kind of big and looming in my life. Like I don't have to allow it to take over everything. I don't have to allow it to suck all the joy out of my life. A lot of times, like if we're making a plan, but like we haven't completed it yet. We haven't gotten as far as we want to. It's like we're not allowing any joy into our lives until this is done. That's not really necessary. So you could be learning how to, allow that very significant thing to take over when it needs to and to put your focus there, but to also pull back and to say, okay, I'm done with that for now. And I need to have some fun. I need to see a band play or go to a club or hear music or be involved in something, go to the theater, be involved in something that lifts my spirits. If you're noticing you haven't done that in a long time and you're continuing to resist, this might be a time when it becomes like, I have to have some fun or I'm going to lose my mind. So make some time for whatever it is that brings you joy. And if that's with your partner, then it's probably about like doing more of what the two of you like to do together. Or that could be about spending more time with your children. The fifth house also rules our relationship with our children. For Scorpio Rising, the struggle is boundaries with our children. So if you've been spending this time very focused on boundaries and you have forgotten to like just have fun with your children, like if it's been like likely with Saturn being in that house, there's been a lot of focus on what are the rules in this relationship and, how do I enforce these boundaries? Even that, like, even if it's pressing that we do that, are we making time to have fun with our kids if we can? And sometimes there's circumstances where, if my child's in rehab or, my child's involved in something that just doesn't give time right now for us to have fun together, I could be noticing that I've lost that. And I may need to find a way to fill that while my child or adult child is doing their thing. And that might not be something that I'm used to. Like maybe I'm used to always getting to have fun with my kids when I want to. And now their lives are taking over their time. And I'm not, able to just declare family fun day. And I may be uncomfortable with that. Now might be the time to say, okay, well, how do I reconnect with my children in a way, like consistently, but that addresses or that meets the needs of this moment? What does that look like for me? And if I'm not able to do the fun things with my children that I used to be able to do, what else can I do? So that, I'm still having fun with them in whatever way that's redefined now, but I'm also having enough fun for me. I'm also enjoying life enough for me. If they're busy right now, which is okay, it happens. It doesn't mean we've lost them. It just might not be time. And that's okay. Focus on how you're going to fill that time for you. If you have Libra rising, this lunar eclipse on March 14th is highlighting your 12th and 6th houses. So for you, this can look like addressing any areas of self-sabotage or sabotage from others, or confronting any hidden fears that you might have that are motivating you unconsciously. If there are unresolved issues, they're likely to rear their ugly head and force you to address them. It's not a bad thing. It's just about having freedom from whatever those issues are and whatever is unfinished or unresolved. If there is a conversation with someone that you need to have, if there is a truth about yourself that you've kept hidden, it could come out at this time, or it could just kind of like you're seeing signs of, yeah, I really need to tell this person that thing. And that could be about like, there's a thing that this person does that really bothers me. I really have to have that upfront conversation. So sometimes like there's a, whatever, a behavior that someone does, maybe, has to do with the way they treat certain people. And it doesn't mean it's intentional. Like people can do things that are hurtful, that they're doing them, they're just unaware. And you may have been kind of like hoping for the best, that they're going to come to this on their own, and they're not. And so it's like looking like time that you have to say something. If that's the case for you, it just means like have a plan going in, because when we like suffocate these things over time, they like can fester, and either, they come out in this very mindless kind of way where we really, looking back on it, we really wish we had addressed it either with more kindness towards that person, towards ourselves, towards the situation. We wish that we had said this or that thing instead of saying the thing that we actually said. If you feel like there's something in your life like that that could come up, this is a good time to like address it with yourself consciously, so that when that comes up with this person, you're able to kind of stand your ground, but do so like in a calm way. And that's not about necessarily them. That's about you. Like that's about, I don't have to look back on this, even if this is like this crappy person that I don't care about moving forward. I want to know that I addressed it in a way that was respectful to me, that I wasn't condescending, that I didn't like shrink away from what my truth is, that I just felt sure of myself, and I just moved forward, and I just said what was on my mind, and that was that. So if that's what this looks like for you, that could be a way of managing it. This could also look like changes to like your daily routine, or maybe changes that need to be made that haven't been, having to do with like how you take care of yourself as far as health, or how you, run your day, how you're running your day to day. And is it causing you exhaustion? Are you doing all the things that you need to do to take care of yourself? Are you becoming overwhelmed? Are you planning too many things? Are you not planning enough things? Whatever that looks like for you, this is a time to manage that, to get that to a place that's reasonable. It's not about piling on more things, if that's kind of a thing that you do. It is about adding things to your day-to-day routine if what you're feeling is that you're missing things. You know, if you're feeling like, not like you're not doing enough in that, like, I never am enough, do enough kind of way, but like really I'm missing something. I really need something to fill this space. This is a time when that may show itself. Either the thing that you want to add to your daily routine, to your day-to-day life, or that something is missing and that you need to find that thing. If this is about your health, you may just be making, you know, changes to your diet, changes to your exercise routine, changes to what you eat. You know, if you find that you're lactose intolerant, or, you know, those are the kind of things that can present themselves right now. And that is also about addressing your needs, not just taking on what someone else says, whether I look up to them or it sounds like that's a good idea, and applying it to myself when it doesn't really fit. Like, if you've done that, this is probably a time when that thing is going to have to go. Like, if someone said, oh yeah, I only eat carrots and now I feel so much better, and now I'm trying that. I mean, that's an extreme example, but like that kind of thing. Like, I'm trying what someone else did to make themselves feel better. It's not working for me. Like, I need to find something that's real for me, that's valid for me. So basically just redefining whatever your daily habits are, your health habits are. And if you have a work environment that either hasn't been working for you, or it has been shifting for you, has become uncomfortable for you, that may be something that you need to address right now. That can be your like work environment that you physically go to, or that can also be like people that you employ for help. Like, if there's someone who walks your dog, takes care of your kids, or, you know, helps you with cleaning the house, or even if you like take your laundry to, you know, a service to do it, like at a laundromat. It's all of those little things fall under our employees. So they're not things that we usually think of as employees, but they actually are. So there could be some kind of shift in what that looks like for you. Maybe you're deciding to do certain things on your own rather than, you know, hiring out for that. If there's projects in your life that maybe you've been hiring other people to do, that might be something that you've found that, you know, really I could do that for myself and I'd like to do that for myself. Or I'd like to save that money so that I can spend it on this other thing for myself. Whatever that looks like for you. This whole time is about letting go of what doesn't work so that we can make room for what does. So if that's about whatever that I'm holding back, any conversations that I need to have, any truth that comes out at this time, or any shifts in the dynamics of my work or my health or my daily routine, those are all things that if they come up, they have to be addressed now. Like, that's what this time is for. So try to do so in a way that's just true for you. Again, not about adding if you're already overwhelmed, not about doing less if you're feeling like you're missing out. You want to do the thing that brings balance for you. All right, so that's it for now on the lunar eclipse in Virgo and Pisces. I hope you heard something today that will help you to make good choices for you for the month of March and for this entire 5-week eclipse cycle. Please feel free to comment below about how this eclipse is working out for you. I'd love to hear all of your examples and interpretations of how these things are playing out. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe so that you never miss a future update. Thank you so much for watching today, and have a fabulous rest of your week. Take really good care of you.